All right, so we're gonna start on universal settings, one red spring, some sort of sticky thing so that you don't slide all over the place. You can just set it aside for now. And we're gonna start on our hands and knees, hands on the foot bar. We're just gonna focus on getting back into our bodies, getting our body moving today. Try to keep the carriage relatively still, but you're gonna push the carriage out until your knees are under your hips. So it might be out an inch or two. And from there, round your back under, it'll pull the carriage back in that inch or two, and then lengthen out from tail to head. So you're focusing on moving through your lower back. It's less about moving the carriage and just the carriage moving as a response to the spinal movement. Mostly the movement is in the pelvis and in the lower back. Your upper body is just kind of hanging out, responding to it. As you do this a couple times, you can lengthen your spine into a little bit of extension, pull your chest through, bend the elbows, and then round and flex, sit back towards your heels a little bit more, and lengthen through neutral into a little extension, lifting the chest. Do that twice more, rounding and lengthening. As you lengthen into that extension, think about opening the sits bones back behind you. And one last time, rounding and lengthening, and then just stay there in one long line and neutral. Carriage is held out from the back of the legs just a little bit, and just reach one arm forward and set it back down on the bar. And as you do this a couple times, you're trying to find the center. So it should feel like the hamstring kicks on a little bit more on the opposite side to help you stabilize as you reach the arm. And reaching one arm forward and setting it down. Make sure your hands aren't getting closer and closer together. They're about as wide as the bar. And one more time. And then round your back, sit back towards your heels and push the bar away. So you're stretching into your lower spine for a second. Rounding, letting your shoulders lift up towards your ears. Let them protract a little. You can wiggle around a little bit. And then you're gonna come to sitting. You can put the sticky pad there at the edge of the carriage. You wanna be pretty far forward. If you don't have a sticky pad, the flex band will work. Just fold it up and it'll stick you to it. You just don't want it in the track on the side. So then start the same way where we're letting our legs glide. If you're on a lower reformer, it just means your legs are a little straighter, but you're just letting your legs dangle. And you're gonna push the carriage out, kind of flatten through your back, press out so your torso gets pretty flat, and then stay there a second. Let your shoulders lift up towards your ears, draw your shoulders away from the ears. So you're moving the carriage by gliding the shoulder blades on the back. Just a couple times, gliding the shoulder blades, and then round your back to bring the carriage back in. Lift up, bend the elbows, think of pulling the heart up and through, and then head to tail, round, push out, lengthen the spine once you get out there, and then round your back under to come back in. Let the feet just kind of drag and move as they need. And one more time, pressing out, flatten out, push, push, push the bar away, and then round the pelvis under, bend the elbows, lift the spine up and through. And then bring your hands closer to the center. Release one hand, reach it out to the side, up and over, push the carriage away as you rotate to the side, set it down. And as you press out and in, you're doing this big rotational movement. It's got that same movement through the spine of rounding and lengthening. Should feel really nice, like a yawn for your rib cage. Whatever you can make of that. So it's kind of like a forward crawl swimming, that one arm goes up and over, you come in, arm up and over, you come in, arm up and over. Yeah, exactly. And two more. And then start with the first side again so you can kind of see me. Turn, lift up and over, and then lengthen out and round your lower back and lengthen your lower back. So again, moving through the pelvis and the lower spine. So it's like you're spinning your pelvis backwards to push the carriage out and under, and moving the pelvis and lengthening. And one more time, moving the pelvis to move the carriage and lengthening, and the other way. So you push out, you stay in that rotation, you lengthen the pelvis, you curl it under, and lengthen the pelvis, curl it under, lengthen, curl it under. 2 more. And last one. Come all the way back in. Turn to face the side, still sitting very close to the edge. Obviously, don't fall off the edge, but put your hand on the bar and just push up and over into a side bend, and then lift back up out of it. One more time like that, super simple. Side bending, lifting up and over, and coming back. Turn towards the foot bar and put both hands on the bar as wide apart as you can get them. Push the carriage out, trying to keep more or less both sides of the pelvis down on the carriage, and then bring the carriage back in. So as you do that a few times, it should feel like a huge stretch from the back of your scapula shoulder blade to the opposite side of the pelvis. And then you can start to move the spine a little more thoughtfully, where you lift the spine into a little bit of extension, bending the elbows, lifting the heart, and then you curl around the spine to push out. And as you come back in, you stack up on top of that pelvis, bend the elbows, lift your sternum through. Oh, of course, on your own timing, however it feels good to you. Lift the sternum, and twice more. Press out and pull back in again, still letting the legs just slide on the floor. Press out and come back in, and then push out one last time. You can use your feet to hold the carriage a little bit if you need to, and then just push the carriage away a little bit further. Let the outside sit bone lift up a little bit as you lengthen your spine, and then curl that sit bone back down. Push far enough away that that outside sit bone lifts. Let that sit bone come back down. Push out and sit bone down, and push out, sit bone lifts. And of course, you're not just lifting it because I say so, you're lifting it because it has to lift after you push out far enough. And one more time, push out and come all the way back in. Bring your feet up onto your legs up onto the bar like your mermaid. You always have the option of letting one leg hang off, and just go into your normal mermaid, big side bend up and over, lift up, set your hand down and side bend the other way. And twice more like this, pushing the carriage away, connect to the back of your shoulder, and side bend away one more time, and big lift up and over, keep that opposite sit bone down, and lift and side bend. Then rotate towards the shoulder rest, push, pull through the hands and kind of look all the way around yourself. And then release that. You can keep turning all the way around to do all of this on the second side. So sitting with your hips near the edge of the bar, or the edge of the carriage near the foot bar, and hand closer to the foot bar on the foot bar, push out into just a side bend, and then come back up and in. And normal side bend, arm goes overhead, and come back in one more time. Side bend, and come back in. Turn towards the foot bar, put your hands wide apart on the foot bar, push the carriage out. One side might feel really different than the other on this. So push out as far as you can, keeping the pelvis down, and then bring the carriage back in, stacking up from tail to head. You can go into a little extension of the upper body and push the carriage out and bring it back in. Lift the sternum, use that pulling apart of the elbows to help open up the upper back. Lifting through the chest and pushing out. And pull the carriage in, lift the chest. And twice more, pushing out. And pull back in, lift the sternum, come into extension. And last one, you're gonna stay out there. Then let the outside sit bone lift because you push out so far. You can use your feet to help you control the resistance. And then let the sit bone come back down. Push out and let that sit bone come back down. Push through the arms and let the sit bone come down. Push out, sit bone down, and kind of gradually opening up these different areas of our body. 2 more. And last one. And come all the way back in with the carriage. You can bring your legs onto the carriage like your mermaid position. Hand kind of towards the front of the bar and side bend up and over towards the foot bar. Lift up, try not to collapse, especially as you go towards the back of the reformer, towards the shoulder rest. And continue, big side bend and side bend. And one more time, side bend towards the foot bar, lift up and side bend towards the shoulder rest and lift back up, turn towards the shoulder rest, push through the hands, rotate yourself around. Try not to hunch, but lift the spine up and try to look around yourself. Good. And then turn towards the back of the reformer. Put your legs through the shoulder rest. They can cross if you need. At least a hand's distance behind you. Grab a hold of your straps. And let the hands stay apart. So they're close to each other, but a little bit apart. And then just round your back under, reaching actively through the legs. So the legs are reaching forward as the belly goes back. And then sit back up nice and tall. So this should feel similar to all the other things we've done so far, where you're kind of rounding and moving into the lower back and moving the pelvis, getting those hip flexors going and rounding back and lengthening up. As you round back, try not to send the head forward. So it's not, the emphasis is not in the upper back, that you really emphasize the lower back and rounding back. The resistance should be changing, so you're not holding the hands the same distance to the chest the whole time. That makes sense? So as you sit back up, stack up from tail to head, let the straps get a little floppy again, so you're not just holding the tension the whole time. Makes it too easy. Not that this is supposed to be really hard, but it's kind of one of those little cheats we do. And then you're gonna round back and stay. Scooping through the abdominals, stay and hold. Drop the elbows so that they're near the line of the ribs and bend and straighten the elbows. Rounding through your lower back, bending and pulling in. Think of scooping through the abdominals. Actively reaching the legs in the opposite direction. So you're not just hanging out here into this shape. You're reaching and creating opposition. Top of the head is going towards the ceiling. Feet are reaching away from the belly. One more time. Bicep curl, then come forward over the legs, round forward, and sit back up tall. Switch which leg is on top. Start the same way, rounding back, pulling in. Keep your hands near your chest. Rotate your upper body to one side and then punch up on the high diagonal. Now down towards the floor with the bottom arm. Yes. And then come back into the center. And your palms should face towards the foot bar direction as you open the arms. So you're not trying to straighten them. You're trying to rotate the upper body. Rotate, reach, center. Rotate, reach, center. That bottom arm will want to drop down. Try to keep it going up in a high V. Rotate, center, and rotate. Very nice. Center and rotate. One more each way and rotate. Should feel like the arms are just kind of holding the resistance the whole time. Come back to the center, hollow out the abdomen to scoop forward over the legs, and then sit back up. You can either keep your legs where they are, or you can bend them, sit cross-legged, however you're comfortable. Bring your arms in, the straps up onto the elbows, and just go into a little bit of open elbow. You're trying to connect between the shoulder blades. So you're opening your arms and closing your arms. Your palms are facing you when you start, and they stay facing you the whole time. You're not turning the hands. You're focusing on what's happening at the back of the shoulder. So where the arm bone connects into the shoulder blade and then between the shoulder blades. Try to keep your hand over your elbow. Some of you are going so wide that your hand is no longer, your forearm is no longer vertical. If that feels pretty manageable, feel free to go into airplane, which your arms would be straight, the straps would be down on the hands, and your hands are as high as they can be towards shoulder height. It's the same thing, longer lever. Try not to use momentum. Palms should either face forward or down if you're doing airplane. Good. And 3 more. Last one. And then return. Put the straps back on the shoulder rests or the hooks. Carefully come to kneeling with your hands on the rails. Staying in neutral spine, just pulling the carriage in by flexing at the hip joint for a moment. Pulling in and return. Think of lengthening the upper back as you pull, so you're not rounding further. Moving the hip joint. Two more. And last one, you should feel some connection through the back of the shoulders. Then take both hands to one side. You're not going to do the exact same motion. You're going to try to side bend. So as you pull, you're side bending through the upper body. So it's less about the movement of the legs and more about the upper body side bending, like you're trying to bring your shoulder towards your hip. Shoulder towards the hip, return to the center. Shoulder towards the hip, return. Should feel like your obliques are working. If it's too heavy, you can always adjust. Before the holidays, we were working on getting the springs to be a little heavier on some of these things. We're still working on that. And then take your hands over to the other side. Give the second side a couple reps. Side bending, pulling the shoulder towards the hip. Pelvis more or less stays where it is. Side bend and center. And side bend and center. 4 more. Good. 3, 2, and last one. And then coming back to the center. You can get rid of the sticky pad if it's not necessary for what we're doing now. Half spring, kneeling, facing the side, or you can sit cross-legged. So standing up on the knees, just going into your external rotation. Outer arm is rotating. Your elbow is holding that kind of newspaper or clutch purse at your side. Trying to keep your shoulders square to the front and feel the back of your shoulders working. So you're trying to stay connected through the back of the shoulder girdle. Yeah, nice. Good, Grace. One more time. And then take your arm down to the low diagonal, rotate your upper body towards it. As you press up and across to the high diagonal, rotate in that direction. So getting our rotation going here as well. Pelvis is staying hips forward, like headlights pointing forward, and the rotation is coming from the upper body. Yeah, awesome. If it helps, you can put your hand on your hip to help you Figure out if your pelvis is staying forward. One more time. And then bringing that strap back down and step off to the floor on that side and add 1 red spring. So you have 1.5. Standing at the side like you're doing your single thigh stretch. So push the carriage out and open through the front of the hip. Now feel how open the front of that back leg is, the front of that back hip is, your knee is down. What I want is that you don't flex at the hip, meaning like there's an angle here, that you keep it open and you think of your head coming towards your foot. So that's as far as I can come in because that's as much hip extension as I have. So I'm not flexing at the hip to come in and just lifting my head. You're trying to make the whole knee to hip to upper body into a big arcing shape. And then you kind of rock it back out like a rocking chair, bottom of a rocking chair. Pushing out, lifting to come in. Head is going towards the back foot. Yeah, beautiful. Very nice. You don't have to drop the head when you come in. It's gonna naturally just look forward. Try not to let it go way forward though. It's still connected to the back of the body. Push out and open the hip. One more time, push out and lift and come back in. Good, you're gonna keep your foot against that shoulder rest, but you're gonna take that half spring off. Be careful on this. You're always welcome to add more, but put your hands on the carriage and your foot against the shoulder rest. And you're gonna push out. You can put your hand down on the rail if you want and just do an inner thigh stretch. Just don't run over your hand. Bend your leg as it comes in. There's a point where it'll have to. If you're on a low reformer, you'll probably have to kind of feel like it's slightly different in terms of the bending of the leg. But it should feel like you get a little bit of opening through the inner thigh. You press out. You can stay there a second if you like, and then come all the way back in. Awesome. Switch to the half spring and take the red full spring off. Kneeling, facing away, facing the second side, holding the strap in the outer hand. External rotation. So you're rotating, holding that imaginary newspaper under your arm, trying to focus on what's happening with the back of the shoulder blade. As you rotate the arm, connecting to the back of the shoulder, between the shoulder blades. Three more. Last one. And then you're gonna reach down towards the shoulder rest, rotate your upper body in that direction. If the strap's a little short or a little long, just adjust where you are in relationship to the shoulder rest. So shift away. And then as you press out, rotate towards it. As you return, rotate towards the shoulder rest. If it's a little too heavy, just move a little bit and it'll help you to kind of lighten the spring tension slightly. Rotate and rotate towards the back. Rotate towards the front. Hips stay forward, rotate towards the back. And when I say front and back, I'm obviously talking about the front and the back of the reformer. The front of the reformer is the part with the foot bar on it. The back is the pulleys. Two more. And last one. And then setting that strap back down. Carefully step off to the side of the reformer. Put one more red spring on so you have 1.5. Push the carriage out, opening through the back hip. So feeling like you're really open. As you come back in, you keep that amount of opening. So like your head is coming into an arc shape, half moon, rocking one way and then the other. You're not gonna stay and hold. It doesn't have to be fast, but you're continuously moving. That back glute and hamstring should feel like it's doing a little bit to press the carriage out. Yeah, nice. As you bring the carriage in, bend your elbows a little bit. It'll help to bring your sternum through. So you're like widening across the front of the collarbones and connecting between the shoulder blades behind you. Try not to drop your head so that it's not a big neck movement that I'm seeing. That's better, Ginge. Feel like the back of your head is connected to the middle of your upper back and connected to the back of your sacrum. And all those 3 points are related, connected, arcing together. And then you can come back in. You can keep your foot near that shoulder rest, but take the half spring off and bring the other foot that you're standing on kind of under the reformer. Push the carriage out a little bit by straightening that leg on the carriage. Open the inner thighs and come back in. Push out. Use your hands however they're helpful to you. I kind of step my hand down onto the rail. Push out and come back in. So one of my hands is on the carriage and then one is on the rail. And then as I come back in, I just step my hand back up onto the carriage so I don't run it over. Last time, open your inner thighs and come all the way back in. Good. Bring the foot bar all the way down. And let's grab our boxes. Let's put the box on. Make sure you'll be able to access the straps, but we're going to start without straps. So, box in the center. Once you're there, you can put your hands on the corner, slide your whole body on there. And today, let's rotate the legs turned out and separate them about so that you feel more connection through the back of the hip and a little more ease in the lower back and sacrum. So hands near the sides of the carriage. You're gonna lift the sternum and lift the chest and let your upper body come into a little bit of upper back extension. Your ribs will still be touching the box. And then lengthen forward and you can round over the front of the box a little bit. And again, lengthening, feel like you're pulling your heart through. Remembering that idea of like relationship between the back of the head, the middle of the shoulder blades on the back, and the back of the sacrum, that those 3 points are moving in a connected way, not just the head all on its own. And then lengthening back. Let's bring our hands to our foreheads and our spines to one long line. Hands to the forehead. Stay there. See if you can rotate your upper body a little bit to one side. You probably won't go very far. And then rotate the other way. And if you notice one side is easier to rotate to, which I'm definitely noticing that, then it kind of gives you some information about asymmetries that might be happening. We're never going to be symmetrical, but we're always using one side to inform the other. One more each way. Finish up even on both sides. And then you can set your hands down wherever they're comfortable. And just kind of shake your hips out a little bit. You might rotate your legs to parallel or even turn your legs inward, knees inward. And then we'll grab our straps. We're going to be in neutral spine today, and we're going to do just tricep presses. So starting with that plow movement, legs can be parallel or you can turn them out today. So pulling the arms down, send the sternum forward and through. Even though you're in neutral, you're trying to connect to the upper back. Bend and straighten the elbows a few times. Feeling rib to hip connection. Try not to look straight forward, that you're looking probably down towards the back foot of the reformer area and in a lengthened neck position. Ask if you're pushing equally with both hands, both arms. 3 more. next one, when you straighten your arms, keep them straight. Connect to the back of the tricep and do a little pulse. Up, up. Not so big that it rolls your shoulder forward. It's small. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Keep the arms straight. Sweep them back down. Go into that full spinal movement, flexing forward and then lifting up into extension and flexing forward over the box, pulling down and back and coming forward over the box. Lift and lengthen over the box. One more time. And then you can bring your straps back to the hooks or the rails, whatever, shoulder rest, whatever you have. Bring the carriage back in, turn around, bring the foot bar up to the second from the top. So position 2, lay on your stomach, same position, facing the other way. Chest over the front of the box, legs turned out. If you're on the more petite side, you might have to move the gear bar and the stopper in order to feel like you can move fully, but try it here. Push out through your arms, one long line, and then lift your sternum into extension. Let the front of the body roll open like that bottom of a rocking chair thing we were doing with our hip flexor. It's the same idea. So the hips are feeling really open. You press out, you lift the sternum and the chest, flatten back out to neutral, and then bend and come back in. It does start to have that kind of rolling rocking chair feeling. Press through the arms, lift the sternum, push yourself back out, bend the elbows to come in. Push through both arms, lift. It's all one continuous motion. Make sure your legs aren't all the way together though. You need the space in order to protect your lower back. Yeah, good. And then one last time. Find one long line and stay in that one long line. Push out, connecting to the back of the shoulders and in a few times. If you'd like this to be harder, you could bring one hand to the front of the box or to the forehead, but you are trying to keep both hip bones down. So you're not letting it be so extreme that you rotate. If you need to lighten the springs, you could, or just keep with both arms. If you're on one arm, switch to the other arm. Try to keep the hips from shifting off center. Two more of whatever you're doing. And if you can do one more just to center everything back off and come back in. Good, slide off to the side. And we're gonna take the box away. Bring the foot bar all the way up. And you want that stickiness, again, the sticky pad or flex band. I think the one red spring will still work. So let's try that, and we might decide we need to go heavier. But sitting pretty far forward, depends on how long your legs are and how flexible you are, but pretty far forward. And you're gonna put your heels up onto the bar and you're gonna hold on to the center of the bar. If I'm too far forward, it'll be like I'm tipping over, like the bar is pulling towards me. If I'm too far back, I can't get the carriage all the way in. So there's sort of that sweet spot. And then I want you to focus on your breath. So round your spine, any part of your foot on the bar that's comfortable. You're gonna inhale. As you exhale, try to send your breath into your lower back. You can start to push a little through your legs and kind of let that body roll forward, that bottom of a rocking chair feeling, only slower. And then you're gonna round the pelvis back in And you're taking that C curve that your spine is in, kind of elongating it, tipping it forward, and shortening the C curve as you come back in. Yeah, that's right. So try to not make it about the effort of the legs. It's really not the legs pushing to make everything happen. It's more the feeling of you're sending your breath into your lower back, and that kind of hollows out the abdomen and stretches that part of the body back, which elongates the legs. Twice more. Opening through the back. I don't care if your legs straighten or not. It's not the point. And then coming all the way back in. Awesome. Put 2 red springs on and come to laying on your back. You don't need the sticky pad. If it's bothering you, get rid of it. And then put the feet in the straps, please. Should feel nice to be in this kind of elongated, flat position. Just start with parallel leg circles. So keeping the back of the pelvis down, feel like you're creasing at the front of the hips, lengthening through the back of the pelvis to bring the legs towards you. Crease and around, lengthening through the spine. You guys have all done a million leg circles, and if you jumped on your reformer during break, probably you did some leg circles because it feels good. Really, today, what I want is you to focus on that creasing at the front of the hip, like you're folding, should feel kind of soft in there, and that you're lengthening fully through the back of the hamstrings. If you're parallel and staying parallel, which is what I'd like, you probably won't go much wider than the reformer. Reverse the direction of your circles, deep creases. Each time you press the straps back away towards the foot bar, feel like your head and your shoulders elongate away from the feet. So you're not letting the machine kind of shove you around. And just using your breath however you can to open up any of those tighter areas. And then you're gonna bring your legs up towards the ceiling. Wherever you can keep your sacrum down, the back of the pelvis down, and feel like you have the hamstring length to be there. And then I just want, almost like a cat kind of pawing, I want you to bend one leg and lengthen it. There's no right or wrong way, just don't lose the straps. If you flex your feet, you'll feel how they almost fall off. So keep the straps on your feet, but just opening. And then you'll start to feel how, as you do this kind of small movement of the knee and the ankles, one's bending as the other straightening, you might feel how the carriage wants to move. If it doesn't want to move, that's okay too. You can totally just bend one knee and keep the other one straight and not move the carriage. And about 4 more. And then press your legs onto the diagonal, rotate your legs turned out, bring your legs up the midline, big circle around. Once you get back to the start position, lift, staying turned out, and lower. And then a circle. So circle and lift, lower, and a circle, lift, lower, and a circle. If you can add a bend and stretch to this too, that'd be great. So after the lift, lower, bend and stretch, and then into your big circle. And lift, lower, bend, straighten, circle. Trying to smooth it out. And then pause once you get back to the foot bar. Reverse your circle, go around the other way. And then lift lower. And then bend, stretch. And then circle in this opposite direction. Feels a little harder to smooth out, but eventually you will. Circle, lift lower, bend and stretch. Circle. Stay turned out the whole time. Just 2 more sets here. Last set. And then rest. Turn your knees and your toes inward so you're immediately rotated. And then just small, quicker circles like the size of a basketball. You can decide how high your legs are towards the ceiling when you're doing this. And gradually working your way up towards the ceiling and then gradually working those circles back down towards the foot bar. At some point it starts to be less smooth, so keep it in that smooth range. Internally rotated. Obviously, there's not a lot of things in your everyday life I'm asking you to do in this turned in way, but it strengthens different muscles, which we want that balanced strength around the hip joint. One more, going down and going up. Concentric circles. And then you can pause, bend your knees, take your legs wide and grab a hold of the straps wherever you can reach. Happy baby kind of pose and let yourself rock a little side to side. Releasing through the lower back. And you can either stay here if these are the springs you need for mid-back series and to have the straps in your hands. If you know you need lighter springs, and take your feet out of the straps and adjust to what spring tension works for you. And then you can lay back down, and then we'll all put the straps on our hands. Reach the arms up towards the ceiling, connect the abdominals and lift the legs to tabletop. Push the arms down, just straight up and straight down. Yeah, try not to let the legs move around. Using your abdominals to stabilize. Feel like you're pulling from the back of the armpit, back of the shoulder. Good. If you want to add one leg extending as you press down, you can. Two more. Keep the ribs connected. And then once your arms are down by your side, keep them there, bend and straight the elbows. Tricep presses, the elbows are hovering. Whatever height off the carriage helps you to open across the front of your collarbone. Ribs are connected. You can add one leg extending if you choose, but keep the ribs and the pelvis connection. One more time. Press the arms to straight, open the arms to a V, and then press back towards your hips, trying to find the center of this connection. If you'd like it to be a little harder, you can open your arms more straight to the side. You can add the one leg extending. Three more. And then set your feet down, take the straps in one hand and just roll to the side to sit up. Then it's easier to put the straps away. You can put the straps back And we're gonna go into elephant. If you need to switch your gear bar stopper, you're always welcome to. I'm still in universal because I'm kind of average. 2 red springs, feet flat against the shoulder rests, round your back up towards the ceiling, scooping, hollowing out the abdomen, bringing the carriage in, pushing out, rounding the back up further as the carriage comes back in. This is one of those exercises that it's easy to focus on the movement of the legs and the movement of the carriage, but really we're trying to focus on the breath moving through the lower back and the connection of the lower back. So try to stay round, stay in the round back the whole time. It's not changing. As you push out, it shouldn't change. Yeah. One more time. Step 1 foot forward. And here your spine might move from neutral to flexion just to be able to accommodate the legs. The front knee is bent. You're gonna push the carriage out a little bit to stretch the back calf, back leg is straight. And then as you come back in, straighten the front leg and bend the back leg. You're shifting a little bit forward. You're shifting a little bit back. And shift and shift. Bend one leg, the other leg is straightening. As the carriage comes in, the front leg is straightening. You've got to sit back towards your heels. If you're too far forward as the carriage comes in, it'll feel impossible. Yeah, and if you're really tight, you could always do this with the jump board or cardio tramp on there so that you got a little higher off the foot bar. And switch which leg is forward, which is back. Push the carriage back, bend the front leg, bring the carriage in, straighten the front leg. Bend and straighten. It's okay if you can't go all the way to straight. Moving through the back of the ankles, through the front of the ankles. It's getting everything going a little bit. Push, pull, push, pull. Last one. And then set your knees down. And we're gonna be sitting facing the foot bar. If you wanna sit up on a platform, you can. I would say 1 spring, 3/4 maybe, if you wanted a little lighter. The straps are gonna be in your arms or hands. So you decide, you can always adjust them later. But sitting cross-legged, you're welcome to kneel if you want a little more adventure, but just be really mindful of staying vertical. So sitting, reaching the arms forward, this shouldn't feel super heavy. This should feel pretty manageable. To stay vertical and press the arms forward. Yeah. Anita and Grace, see if you can bring your shoulders over your pelvis more. You're just a little bit leaning forward. Yeah. You can kind of use the backrest as a way to feel where vertical is, sorta. Yeah, that looks awesome, both of you, nice. And then press the arms forward, go wide of the shoulders, and then lift the hands up towards the side of the head and stay vertical and go into your tricep presses. If you decide you need to come out of this, straighten the arms and do that same reach forward to come out of it that we got into it. Don't just drop the arms. If you have a lot of tension in the hips, leaning forward might actually help you. So if you need to lean forward, you can. But ideally, we're working towards being able to be vertical and use the abdominal strength to hold us vertically. Yeah, there we go. 2 more. Straighten the arms, reach the arms forward and sweep them back down. And then bend your elbows, go into offering. So reach the arms forward, serve a tray, open wide across the collarbone, connect and bend back in. So as you're doing this, the goal is about getting wider across the front of the shoulders. So as your hands come in towards each other, try not to round, let the shoulders come forward. you get this big, wide open position, and you try to keep that open as your hands come back towards each other. Open, wide, keep the width, connect to the back of the shoulders as the hands come towards each other, and open. Two more. And then bend the arms back in. You're going to reach one arm forward and rotate to look away from that hand. You can use a little momentum. Rotate and center, rotate and center. Nice. Two more. And one last time. And then coming all the way back in. You can put the straps back on the shoulder rest. 2 red springs should be good for all of us. No height on the headrest. Lay down with your heels on the foot bar. And just do a hip roll, surrounding the pelvis under, rolling up to open across the front of the hips. Push the carriage out, lowering the pelvis so you're still neutral. Pull the carriage in, lifting the pelvis, and then roll back down through the spine and return. And rolling up through the spine, open across the front of the hips. Try not to make it stop in any of these positions, that they're just signposts that you kind of move past. Open through the hip, press out, lowering the pelvis. Pull the carriage back in, roll down upper back, middle back, low back, and twice more, pressing out. Push, pull, roll it in, and one more time. Opening up, push through the back of the legs, pull it all the way back in, roll back down through the spine. Take your heels to the corner of the bar and just push the carriage out a second. It doesn't feel heavy. Rock your hips a little side to side so your sacrum almost feels like it's floating. And then as you come back in, try to keep that sense of floating the sacrum. So I'm not resting my pelvis down. It's like hip lift, but turned out. If turned out doesn't work for you and you'd rather keep the pelvis in that hover with the legs sits bones distance apart and parallel, you're welcome to. Push and pull. Sacrum is just floating. Your flesh might still be touching, but you're not resting into it. And bring the carriage back in, set the pelvis down. One more set, either turn out or parallel. Push, pull, deep creases in the front of the hip. Turned out it's a little more difficult, so feel free to go back to that parallel version. 4, good, 3, 2, yeah, and last one, and come back in. Bring your, let's do heels. Bring your heels a little wider than hips distance apart. Separate, not separate, rotate your knees out to push out, rotate them in to come in. So just kind of turning, mobilizing the hip joint. Should feel really light for footwork so that it gives you a lot of opportunity to mobilize the hips. Kind of making a funny noise, but that's okay. And then reverse, internal rotation, external, internal, external. And one last time. Hug your legs into your chest, give them a little squeeze, maybe a rock from side to side. You can stir the hips in the sockets. And when you're ready, you can roll to your side and sit up. You're all done. Hopefully you feel like you moved everything and you're back in your body so that we can keep pushing from here.